pleasure to be here, and it is also an important task what we're doing here, because the ethics issues normally are regarded from the outside, especially from projects where you don't directly think that they might have an ethics implication. You say, I'm not going to be working with animals, because if you work with animals, that more or less everybody understands that you will have to get an approval from a given ethics committee that will analyze whether the use of these animals in your research will be justified. So everyone, I think, more or less understands this. And you might say, well, I'm not using animals in my research. You might say as well, I'm not taking any biological sample from a human being, because this is another part of what is regularly considered as the ethics issues. But there's many ethics issues that impact in many different types of research, including research on technology, including research on materials, including the project in which you are involved here, which is dealing with the development of a new type of batteries, for instance. Ethics is everywhere, because you might think, I'm not using animals, I'm not taking blood from my patients, I'm not using participants, I might be just collecting some information from the environment. Okay, I go to the forest, because I'm using some bacteria that they live in this soil, and or I'm interested in how these trees are surviving to this climate change. But for doing this, I might have to cut a couple of trees, so no problem. I go there and I take a saw machine and I cut a couple of trees. Well, you might need to request a permission for this, or you might have to assess whether your intervention in this forest might affect the quality of this forest. So there is an ethics issue here. Or maybe you have a colleague in a very great place, different from what we have today. So you're working with someone which has a research center in a Caribbean island. And this person is providing you with some bacteria they apparently live in the soil, or you're using the coconuts from this palm tree, and from these coconuts you're going to be obtaining a drug, or you will be obtaining a product. So you just go there. This is a country which is not a member state of the European Union, but you cannot go there simply and collect a coconut, just put your coconut in the suitcase and go back to here, to Donostia, and do your research. Well, you might have to get a permission, you might have to get an access to this product. Plus, you are using a resource that belongs to this country. There must be an agreement. These people from this country, if you are obtaining a product, if you are developing an application that eventually is going to be a successful one, because it's going to be a product that's going to be an anti-tumoral agent, or it's going to be a product that will be incorporated in one of the many technological developments, this country, they deserve to be part of this success. There must be a benefit sharing analysis. This is also ethics. So you thought there would not be ethics in your research, and all of a sudden there is an ethics aspect. Because you're sort of you just go to another country and you are collecting a resource that simply doesn't belong to you, it belongs to them. So you need to take into account this, and you need to apply all your respect. Or you think you're developing a civilian application, because this is what you do, because this is what we found in the European Commission. So the European Commission is only funding applications that primarily can be used in the civilian world. But as we know, there's many applications, and there's many materials, there's many technologies that they can have a dual aspect. They can have another life, the same material, the same technology, the same resource, can also have an implication in the military world. If you would be focusing in a military application, you simply will not be funded, because this is an agreement, this is a convention with the member states at the European Commission. The European Commission is not going to be funding something which is directly involved in military application. However, there is not a problem if your development can also be used for the military world. Well, this is also, I mean, you have to justify, you have to be explicit about it, you have to really share what you think might be these implications. We will be developing this in, later on in my talk. And I'm just sort of presenting the highlights. I'm presenting the head titles. So, you think you are developing an application for civilian application, but this application can have this dual use. And this dual use, whether you have thought or not, you need to be aware of it. And you need to explicitly state what is your opinion and what you're going to be doing about it. Of course, you might also be doing some applications or some materials or some resources that can have a malevolent use. You thought that you are progressing in knowledge, that you are developing a tool, or you are developing a weapon that can be used for treating cancer patients, because you're going to be using a viral particle that will shuttle into the appropriate cells some target drug that will kill specifically cancer cells, and this is great. However, the same viral particles can be loaded with something else, can be loaded, let's say, with the viral genome of the influenza virus. And you can have a very nasty strain. And all of a sudden, you're using the same shuttle mechanism, and you are sort of delivering something which is not appropriate, it's not good for the society. So you have to think about this misuse as well. You might have thought that this is obvious. I'm not going to be doing anything bad. I'm not going to be harming the human beings. I'm not going to be harming animals. I'm not going to be harming the environment. But you need to be aware that your application might have this other side, might have these misuse aspects. And again, you need to be clear about it. You need to explicitly think about it, and you need to really reflect on this issue and provide what would be the most reasonable actions that you have to take, to undertake to prevent from the malevolent use of your technology. Because we're living in a real world. So it's clear that here in Tecnalia, nothing is going to be developed that will be used badly for the society. But outside here, these other people, and there are other people that we know, unfortunately, that they're always continuously thinking about just misusing a given technology. So we need to be clear about it, and we need to be presenting. Or perhaps, and this is very often the case when we are in Brussels analyzing these type of projects, that very often they come as a surprise when we're sending them back to the partners and say, you need to be analyzing your ethics issues. And then very often they come, oh, but we're not using animals, we're not using human participants, we're dealing only with a communication system. Well, you're doing with a communication system which would be a marvelous development for connecting different people in different countries, for connecting different societies. But at the same time, you're providing a tool, you're providing a technology that can also be misused, that can also have a dual use. Maybe you haven't thought of this. Maybe it's not something that you have considered. It's not explicitly cited in your project, but you need to be aware of it. And one of the very last examples before we get into the corpus of this presentation, very often you don't know that you are using human beings. Let's say you are using one of these devices. Drones are everywhere these days. And you want to be using drones, let's say, to investigate the reproduction biology of pigeons in a city. So you want to see where the pigeons, they breed, whether they have the nest, and you're going to be deploying these devices, and you're going to be capturing images, and you're going to be capturing videos. But of course, these devices, they travel, and they see people. Of course, there's going to be people in the squares, in the streets. Well, these people, they have a right for privacy. So they have a right not to be recorded. Either you go one by one and you ask them whether they accept to be recorded. Either you include these warnings, or most likely what you have to do is you have to maintain the privacy of these people, and you blur all these images, and you make sure that any human being that is being recorded in this movie, in this time lapse, cannot be recognized. Because all of a sudden you're in the middle of a city and there is this person which shouldn't be there for whatever reason, and she's there. And all of a sudden you're creating a conflict associated with this person and with his family, or maybe with his labor conditions. So you don't have the right to just identify her and have her image and have her video. So all of a sudden you thought you would be only capturing images of pigeons, but you have people in your video. So you need to do something about it. So you have these ethics aspects which are always there. So ethics, there's many different aspects in which ethics can be recognized. And even in the presentation, we had always these different issues. We say ethics, we talk about bioethics. So I thought, for the very beginning, you see there's a number of different words that are normally applied when we're discussing these ethics issues. We're discussing about moral, we're discussing about norms, we're discussing about philosophy, concepts, assumptions, we're discussing about considerations. So let's try to do some very simple definitions. I'm a biologist, I'm not a philosophist, but let's try to define what we're talking here, because that will help to the understanding of the rest of my talk. So definitions. We talk about the moral aspect and we talk about the ethics aspect. Moral, everybody understands. We know that things can be good or bad, and this is an agreement that different societies, different traditions, different morals, we know. We know that helping each other is good. We know that killing someone is bad. Some of these behaviors are transformed into laws, but this is the moral aspect of it. Whereas the ethics is going beyond moral, because it's a critical reflection, because with ethics, it's a branch of the philosophy, and what it provides, it's a systematic way to work through dilemmas, to determine the best course of action among conflicting choices, sort of a generalized conceptual framework for decision making. So you know what is good, and you know what is bad, or you think you know what is good and what is bad. For instance, you know that you shouldn't be killing an animal, or you shouldn't be injuring an animal. So morally would say it is bad to injure an animal. But you're doing this because you're investigating spinal cord problems. You're investigating people that are paralyzed, they cannot walk. And the only way to mimic this is to damage an animal, to injure an animal, to reproduce the very same lesion. So it might be morally unacceptable, but it can be ethically justified. So this is the different aspects. So you think about what is good and what is bad regarding the individual that is involved in the act. The ethics just see the whole picture, the perspective. And what is good and what is bad, it's been interpreted not only with the subject which is involved in the research, but also with all the different individuals in the same group and the relation of these individuals with the environment. And of course we have bioethics, which is a subclass of the ethics, and this is the study of the ethical issues that are arising from healthcare in biological and medical sciences. So as you can see, we can tell very well the difference between moral, the ethics, and the bioethics. Normally ethics includes bioethics, and depending on how originally or historically these committees were built in different institutions, they would be called an ethics committee, which is normally the case. This is the case in our institution. And these ethics committees or these ethics advisory groups, they include a subtype of committees, which are the bioethics. And these are the ones dealing with biological and medical sciences. But if you're doing a research in engineering, in chemistry, in physics, in nanotechnology, you are beyond bioethics, but you are inside ethics. So that's why we're here. So ethics issues, my first message, the first take-home message, this is beyond using animals. This is beyond involving human participants in your research.